Hello and thank you for tuning in today. I'd like to start by wishing you a very happy Lesbian Visibility Week and say welcome to this, the DIVA Survey highlights session. Now, as part of Lesbian Visibility Week, DIVA Media Group has teamed up with Kantar to bring you the DIVA Survey, LGBTQI Women's Insight 2020. I'm Roxy from DIVA Magazine, and I'm joined today by the wonderful Sophia Papadopoulos, who is a business analyst at Cantar. Now, Sophia is so passionate about inclusion and diversity. She set up the Pride at Cantar Employee Resource Group, which connects all of Cantar's LGBTQI community, and she's even won the Women in Research MRX Diversity Champion Gold Award. So very well done, Sophia, and thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much. I'm really glad to be here.
Wonderful. Let's crack right on with the questions and delve into this survey. So first of all, Sophia, why is this survey so groundbreaking and important?
So I think the easiest way to answer that question is with another question. You know, why is it important to understand different groups? At Cantar, we exist to help, our clients understand people and inspire growth. And we have a really strong belief about inclusion and diversity. It's a real business imperative that sits at the core of everything we do. We know that we've got a really important role to play in providing evidence that helps us all better understand the world that we live in. And includes shining a light on groups that are often underappreciated. And in this case, it's LGBTQI women. And I think it's really important that we do try and understand those groups for everyone's benefit.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Now, can you pull out for us maybe some of the key highlights that you noticed when you were going through these survey results?
Yeah, and I think there were a lot of really interesting results. For me, some of the areas that resonated really a lot with me were around spaces and events, the workplace, the experiences of LGBTQI mothers, although I'm not one, I've got a lot of friends who are, and I'd like to be one. And we'll look at all of those in a little bit more detail in a second. But I think for me, one of the things that really struck me was around the generational differences about coming out. We saw 52% of LGBTQI women came out aged 18 or older, while 29% it was under the age of 18. But what I found really interesting was there were some stark differences if you look at the age that people are right now. So if currently 16 to 24, almost 50% of them are coming out under the age of 18. But if they're currently between the age of 25 and 34, it's only a third, so a lot lower than that. And amongst the 44s to 55s, we found that only 18% of them were coming out aged 18 or younger. It sounds kind of intuitive based on how the world's changing, but it really does suggest that Gen Z and millennial people, women, are far more likely to come out at a younger age than their older counterparts.
Fantastic. Yeah, that's really interesting to see and quite hopeful, I think, quite a positive thing that we can draw from these survey results. That's lovely. And you mentioned there LGBTQI spaces and events. How did respondents feel about that topic?
I think it's the simplest way to kind of define that answer is to say there just isn't enough visibility of women or enough spaces and events. Generally, people were very, very aware of Pride Month. We had 95% of people being aware of that, hardly surprising. LGBT History Month was also very high in awareness, but there was lower awareness among some of those designated days, so Trans Awareness Day and Bi Awareness Day. They weren't as well known. We also saw that 79% of LGBTQI women felt that gay men have far more visibility than we do. That rings true for me, right? Like you see a lot more gay men out in the media than you see LGBTQI women, for example. And we also saw that many women from the LGBTQI community felt that there just aren't enough spaces for them. 1 in 3 were saying that there just aren't those spaces. And more importantly, that those events and those spaces, they're not catering to their interests. And that's a real barrier for them going to events. So one of the things that we also saw was around which events people do want to see. And it wasn't so much around dating, which a lot of events and spaces are generally geared towards. They want things around their interests a lot more. So whether that be board gaming, if you're a little bit of a geek like me, or whether it be about sports, whatever it is, they want things around connecting with people rather than just purely dating.
That's fascinating. I mean, it's so true about the need for more visibility and more events. That's exactly why we're launching Lesbian Visibility Week. And I'd just like to say, if anyone is planning on organising a board game night for queer women, then I'd be very into it. I'd be very up for that, whether it's by Zoom, however we're going to make that work. That'd be lovely.
I'm all in for Catan.
Perfect. We'll see you there. Sophia, so we mentioned at the top, you yourself, you are head of Pride at Kantar, which is, of course, Kantar's LGBTQI network. How would you describe your own experience as a visible LGBTQI woman at work?
So my experience of the workplace, I think I was quite pleasantly surprised by some of the results. I think mine has broadly mirrored a lot of that. Generally, I'm very lucky to have worked in places where my sexual orientation doesn't feel like it's been a barrier to me, knowingly. I think, like most people, I've heard people say things that are perhaps a little bit on the sketchy side and not welcome comments all the time. But I think that's true of 99% of people, whether they be from the LGBT plus community or have a disability or a gender thing, whatever it is. We'll always hear those comments, sadly, at the moment. That's why I do a lot of what I do, right? But I think that's mirrored across the board, so I don't find my particular circumstances that unusual. And if we look a little bit more about what the workplace is like, it is a tricky place to be for a lot of people. Our research suggests that LGBTQI women face a number of barriers in the workplace, including not feeling emotionally supported at work, feeling like a minority within a minority, within a male-dominated and heteronormative environment. And although we see 3 and 4 respondents being open about their sexual orientation to most of their colleagues, what I found really interesting is, again, some of those generational differences. So the younger respondents, the 16 to 24-year-olds, they're far less likely to be out in the workplace. Only 1 in 3 are open with everyone in their workplace about their sexuality. That increases to 50% for the 25 to 34-year-olds. And I think if we think back just fractionally about, what we were saying about the age of people coming out, the average age of that was 18. I think that disparity suggests something that I've definitely seen within my workplaces, that those who are younger LGBTQI women, they may be going back into the closet when they get their first job and gradually becoming more comfortable with expressing their identity as they get a little bit older, a little bit more experienced and move forward with their careers. I think that's really important, is building, those sort of mechanisms within a workplace that really help them do that. We also saw that 80% of LGBTQI women feel comfortable being themselves at work, but nearly a third have been made to feel uncomfortable in the workplace at some point. And of those who have been made to feel uncomfortable, only 28% felt empowered to report that to management or HR. And for me, that really highlights the importance and the need to have LGBTQI employee resource groups. It's to create a real culture that's genuinely, authentically inclusive in your workplace and build a truly diverse workforce.
So, Sophia, can you tell us a little bit more about how and why you set up Pride at Cantar?
Yep, so I set up Pride at Cantar as a virtual group when Cantar introduced Workplace, which is like Facebook for work, essentially. I'd been with Cantar for about 5 years. We're a 30,000 employee company across the globe, and I'd always wondered why we didn't have this community of people kind of coming together. So I decided I would just set it up. And at the time I set it up and I was saying to myself, if I get 100 members in a year's time, I'll be super happy. And we had that within a week, which I was absolutely floored by.
Wow.
Now running at just over 600 members in our global network. And, we're looking outside of just Cantar as well. So we participate quite a lot in the MRS Pride group, which is our industry group that mirrors sort of the Pride group within Kantar. And I think for me, I've been really lucky to have been so empowered by Kantar to kind of follow this passion of mine. It's pretty exciting and terrifying all at once to be doing these two things. But I'm really lucky, I think, to work somewhere that doesn't just support the cause, you know, with pieces of work like this, but has really enabled people to do the things that they're passionate about, even in these really tricky times that we're going through. Like a lot of other people, I do this alongside my day-to-day job, and that can be quite tough at times. I've got an excellent line manager who's really supportive and recognises that, you know, the opportunities I get through doing this give me chances to kind of show my leadership skills in a way that isn't necessarily related to my day-to-day job. But I do have to find that balance, and sometimes I have to bring my line manager on a journey of kind of, you know, this isn't just my hobby that I'm doing, this is a thing that benefits a lot of people. And also I am getting this opportunity to show skills and to utilize skill sets that I might not do through my day-to-day job. I think one of the things that I really struggle with sometimes is that there's not really anybody else within the company doing what I'm doing, and that can be really hard. There's no kind of peer community, so I have to look way outside of my, you know, four walls of Kantar to kind of find that. And learning to be a leader in a slightly different way is, you know, rather than the traditional promotions route, that's quite tough at times. But I personally have loved that challenge. And I think it's really important to be looking around for those role models, those in leadership positions, whether they be LGBTQI, whether they be women, whether they be, you know, whatever, it doesn't matter. Find them, identify those behaviours that you think are the ones that are important for you, and model those. And I will give a shout out that if anybody does want to chat to me about how the hell you run these things, I'd love to hear from you.
Wonderful. Well, lovely viewer, you heard it here first. Hit up Sophia for tips on starting your own wonderful LGBTQI network. That's fantastic. Loads of really good advice there, and well done, because these things are so important, so important. I'd love to talk to you as well, Sophia, a little bit about something that really popped out of the survey results when I was going through them, which was some of the answers from LGBTQI mothers. What can you tell us about their experiences?
Yeah, these results really struck me as well. And I think, you know, interestingly, 22% of LGBTQI women who answered our survey are saying that they have children. 26% are saying that they would like to have children in the future, whereas the remaining half aren't that interested in at all. And there are some, again, generational differences that emerge. You know, the younger LGBTQI women aren't that interested, but they're only 16 to 24, so kind of expected. It's in line with kind of where you are in your life stage as well. I think one of the things that I found quite sad in the results, and there were a few things that were a little bit on the sad side, but one of the key ones was around, you know, among those who have children, 36% are saying that they've experienced homophobia from other parents, and another 36% claim that their children have been victims of homophobia as well, due to their parents' sexual orientation. A lot of the comments around, you know, what was the nature of that homophobia, a lot of the comments around that centered around bullying, or the kids just not feeling like they could be open about their parents, or that sort of thing, which I think is quite sad. I think although it's far more common for LGBTQI couples to have kids, there's clearly still a long way to go at the school gates, kind of to build that up and almost normalize it a little bit more, and to reduce those numbers quite a lot.
100% agree with you. I did find that really sad, to be honest, that part of the survey. And I guess it really shines a light, as you say so eloquently, on an area that we really need to work on, and another area that we have to go forward and campaign in and help to normalise that, because yeah, that was a tough part of the survey. Another question I have for you, Sophia. What are the differences that you have noticed from these results between the experiences of transgender women and cisgender women? Were there any particular areas where this was most apparent?
Yeah, I mean, for me, what I found with for our transgender sisters was very much that what we experience as cisgender, they experience it too, just maybe a lot harsher. And what we found was that it was really around safety in the workplace where we found that those differences were the starkest. So I explained earlier around some of the stuff around well, it was all LGBTQI women really. And when we look at our transgender sisters, we see that actually there's it's even harsher for them. The disparities were around those areas. We saw that 64% of transgender women are open with all of their close friends about their gender identity. That drops to 45% if we're talking about them being open with all their friends and acquaintances. And it's 53% about who are open with their family. And according to the research, we saw that transgender women face barriers in the workplace. They're quite significant barriers. 64% are open in the workplace about their gender identity. 1 in 4 of those respondents feel that they face barriers in their workplace due to their gender identity. That's very different to the cisgender community. And 58% of transgender women have been made to feel uncomfortable in the workplace, which is significantly higher than what we saw amongst all the wider group. And again, it was a similar proportion of those who feel comfortable enough to report that. The data is really painting a picture of how safety for the trans community differs compared to the cisgender counterparts as well. The threat of abuse in public spaces amongst our trans community is really severe. Over 50% admitted to experiencing verbal or physical abuse because of their gender identity in a public place. I think for me, that just paints a picture of, we as LGBTQI women are already a marginalised minority within a minority. If you're a trans woman, you're even more of a minority within a minority within a minority. And for me, being who I am, it's all about kind of bringing everyone in, being inclusive, standing up for those who have less of a privilege than you do. I recognise I got this accent, I look the way I do, I've got a lot of privilege. I've got a middle class-ish life, I'm pretty happy with where I am, currently still working, all of that sort of thing. It's really important to be supporting those who have less privilege than you do, essentially, and to be bigging them up, essentially.
Absolutely. I mean, we say it at DIVA all the time, but it completely bears repeating, that we support and we love and we include all of the transgender women and the non-binary people within our community. And this is really, like you say, a stark reminder of the unique experiences that they can have and how some things can really be particularly tough for them.
Yeah.
So thank you very much for illuminating some of those results for us. So now, Sophia, we've discussed some of the key points from the DIVA survey. The last thing I'd love to ask you is, what do you think is the next step? What do you think needs to change so that we can make things better for LGBTQI women and non-binary people?
Yeah, so this is entirely my view. This is, based on the data, this is based on my experience within the inclusion diversity world. This is very much what I think we need to be doing. And I think it's all about making a difference. And I have these 3 things that I often talk about being the most important when we're talking about inclusion and diversity. And for me, it's all about harnessing our own diversity and creating a culture where everyone can contribute, be seen and flourish. I strongly believe that by saying something to support those around us, doing something to build up others and being a real beacon, we can really make a difference. So be an ally and speak up if you see inappropriate behaviour in the workplace, at the pub, on the street, on the bus, whatever it is. Support all women. Be the person who arranges those new meetups to play the board games that we were talking about earlier. Do it around something you're interested in. I guarantee you are not the only one who's interested in that same stuff. Do something. And lastly, be the role model you wish you had. L with a T all the way. Oh,
I love that. What a gorgeous note to end on. Thank you so much, Sophia. That's marvellous. And for anyone watching, if you do want to start a board game night or a new community event or anything like that, go on Facebook and join the DIVA community Facebook page, because there's so many wonderful people on there. And that's a great place to connect with people and to talk about new ideas. But Sophia, thank you so much for chatting to us. What
My absolute pleasure.
Oh, jinx, but yes, what an absolute pleasure, and a very happy Lesbian Visibility Week to you. And thanks again to all of you at Kantar for your support with this.
Absolute pleasure. Thank you so much.